Hey, this is Judith from Days of Judah, and I want to take a minute to talk with you all, about a journey that my family has been on. And I want to share this because I think, well, no, not I think, I know that our family is not the only family that is going on this journey, so maybe it will be helpful for others to see and to hear and to be able to feel some sort of connection. So here we go. The mister and I are exploring homeschooling for our family. We have a small family, 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Excuse me, my nose is itching. We're thinking about it, and today I wanted to talk about how that thought process started. And I'm trying to be quick because it's so easy to get long-winded on this topic, but I'll try to be quick. Everything started with, I think, the pandemic. Our initial plan had always been to send our kids to school, do the system the way we grew up. Neither, me or the mister were homeschooled. We went to school. He did some public school. I did all private school, and that was the plan. But then during lockdown, we had our daughter, who at the time was just turning 1, and then I got pregnant and had our son. So yay for pandemic babies or lockdown babies. We were just all together. We were just all up in each other's space, and it was chaotic and it was beautiful, and it got my brain buzzing, got me thinking about, I didn't know what, but I was just like, kind of like having these people around and close and knowing what their days are like. And at that time also, I was going to grad school, and one of the books that I read was this one here. This is called The Unschooled Mind: How Children Think and How Schools Teach. It is very dense. It's by Howard Gardner. It was a tough read because he's just one of those very it's late and I can't think of my words, but it's a dense read. But it got me thinking about the educational system and all the questions I already kind of had about it tucked away in the back of my mind, and that he was bringing up. One of the ones that really stuck with me was the idea of multiple intelligences. That is the idea that we all have kind of a spectrum of capacity that we take in information. Some of us, we take in things by hearing, seeing, kinesthetically, by movement. I think there's like a list of 8. I'm not remembering them all right at this time, but we all have that spectrum of learning, and some of us are higher or lower in some of those styles of learning, but our system is pretty much built just for 2, so like visual and audio. And if you have other ways that you learn, or if you have other ways that you need to take in information, it's really difficult because the system is not built for you to be able to do that. I think a lot of people, are aware that there's a big push to, the system is geared towards test taking now. Teaching is towards test taking, standardized testing, checking off boxes as opposed to individual learners. So I had a lot of questions that were coming up in reading this, and it was bringing up things that had already been in the back of my mind. So long story short, I started just doing some research on homeschooling. I was, like I said before, I wasn't homeschooled. The mister wasn't homeschooled. I knew people that were homeschooled. Um, I had friends that were homeschooled, but I didn't know what they did during their day, or what it looked like. So I really didn't have a framework, but I came across a book called The Call of the Wild and Free by Ainsley Armand, or Arment. I don't know how you say it. Um, but I was intrigued. This woman was talking about slowing down to enjoy childhood and thinking about education in the way that your individual child learns, and being out in nature, and just the wonder of childhood, and giving children the full opportunity to embrace their childhood and not have to rush through it. All of that, just, I can't even describe how all of that was speaking to me. I also had another voice in my head that was like, it's kind of white. It's very white, if I'm honest. And and then, like, as I thought that thought, another thought came where I said to myself, why do you feel like it's white? Do you feel like it's white because this is not a black cultural experience? Um, or do you feel like it's white because you don't feel like you're allowed to have that? Hard questions that I had to sort through, um, and really challenged me. And like, the bug was just there, and so I just kept, you know, looking and researching. I went on to the Instagram for Call of the Wild and Free, and I started looking through all these pictures, and they're just pictures of children and families homeschooling, and they're beautiful. And it's Instagram, and it's curated. You know, we all know that. Um, but then also, I found myself looking for people of color, because I still had that little thing of like, maybe this is kind of like a white thing, and do we belong here? Is this our space? And I started to see pictures of some black families. It was still predominantly white, but I saw some black families, and some of them kind of like, I felt like, oh, like, I would hang out with you. I would have like coffee with you. Well, I drink tea, but I'd have tea with you. um, and so I went and started looking on the pages of these people of color that I was seeing. One of them was Amber O'Neill Johnston, and she had these just beautiful, really thoughtful posts about what it means to homeschool, and a lot of it was focused on just homeschooling and her particular style of homeschooling that she's interested in, which is Charlotte Mason. But also, a lot of it was about being a person of color in the homeschooling space. And I was like, ah. And she's got these great resources, and I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. Somebody's holding space for people of color. Maybe I can, maybe I can be in this space. So I was more intrigued, and more intrigued. And then I just kept picking through and looking, and then I found this book called The Homeschool Alternative, Incorporating a Homeschool Mindset for the Benefit of Black Children in America. Um, it's an intense title. It can be a little bit of an intense read, but also so very practical, because first, this author our author is Dr. Maisha Taylor and Haley Taylor Schlitz, talk about the challenges of being educated excuse me, in the current school system, being a person of color. Sorry, I'm thirsty. It's a long day. Um, the challenges that people of color face. So it's not just, it's not just a challenge of getting an education. It's a challenge of getting an education sometimes while being black as well, or being a person of color as well. Um, so that was really interesting to explore that, and hear her thoughts on that. But then she was also really, really super practical in this, because she talked about a concept called thinking of yourself as your child's educational coordinator, which was wonderful because it takes the pressure off of feeling like I need to be responsible for absolutely every single minutia and piece and detail of how of teaching that's better of teaching my children all the things. I can coordinate that educational experience. If I want them, or if they are interested in learning Spanish, I don't speak Spanish, but I can certainly research and figure out opportunities for how they can learn and how they can get that experience that don't involve me teaching them. So she was super practical for things like that, or creating that framework. She talks about the many different options for homeschool. Oh my goodness, people. It is amazing. My mind is blown about the different ways that education is happening that's outside of the school walls. It's fascinating. It's definitely worth exploring. She talks about um, a, a rough idea of what a school day could look like, which was really important to me. Um, so this was super super practical. I'm really glad that I got the book. The other books that I mentioned, I listened to on Audible, so I don't have a physical copy, but I'm glad that I have this. I have two other books here that I have not read yet, but they are on my list. If anyone has read them and you have thoughts, I would love to know. They are this one, which is The 4-Hour School Day. I'm already really intrigued by this because I think school is really long. Like 8 hours. Oh, I think that's more about, honestly, it's about like your parents have to work, and so somebody's got to watch the babies. So, um, but it's a long day to be learning or to be actively trying to get stuff in your head. So, I love this idea. I love this idea, and I'm curious. And then this next one, homeschooling and working while shaping amazing leaders. For working parents and single parents, homeschooling, after schooling, educational remediation tips, accelerate learning tips by L.M. Preston. I have not read this yet, but I'm intrigued because I was shocked by the number of parents that are still working and educating their children in alternative methods, and then also by the number of single parents that are doing homeschooling. There's a way. There is a way. People are finding it, and I'm so intrigued. So this is on my list. And then finally just today, I finished by Akila S. Richards, Raising Free People. All I could say about that book is it has my brain buzzing because it was challenging. She was talking about the idea of being raised, how the educational system kind of gets us in this place of, we don't ask a lot of questions about why we do things, and we get into a rhythm of doing things, and then we teach our children that rhythm, and maybe it's not the right rhythm for us. Maybe there is a way to learn. Maybe we can have the freedom to explore, the freedom to trust our children to explore their own learning styles, and get something that is more meaningful and more beneficial to us as individuals, not only for our children, but for us as parents as well. I feel like I'm not even doing it justice, but If you should get a chance, I think that one is definitely a really powerful and challenging read, or listen if you're listening on Audible. And as a person of color, it gave me a lot of questions to think about in terms of the educational experience of my children. So I know I just like slammed everything in there of what I've been reading and thinking about, but this has been over the course of the past couple of years, that I've been reading and thinking and trying to talk to people. I went to a homeschool conference. I made a separate video about that back in April, and just trying to immerse myself in this world and ask as many questions as I can and see, like, you know, does this make sense? So the mister and I have been um, having lots of conversation excuse me, having lots of conversations and exploring, and we're going to explore some more, and we're going to start the journey and figure out what that looks like. Do we fully know what that road is? Nope. um, just to be honest, we don't know how to how to chart it all out, how to map it out, how to get to, you know, um, make our way through this whole process. But we know that we're intrigued, and we know that we've been entrusted with our children for this period of time in history. And so we want to do the best that we can by them, um, as does any parent. So this is our way to explore that. So I'm posting this because I think there are other people that are in this place that are having these thoughts, that are having these questions, and it's just helpful to see that, to know that other people are going through that journey, that are exploring, that are struggling, that are trying to figure it out, um, that are curious, that are anxious, that are excited. Is that enough adjectives? um, so yeah, so we are making our journey, and I thought it would be helpful and important to share that. So I am Judith. This is Days of Judah, and it looks like we may be homeschooling. Do you have thoughts? Do you have questions? Are you doing it yourself? Let me know. I would love to know. Have a good night.